Thanks for staying on the program. Be a part of it by sharing your thoughts with me here on our social media platforms. Join us on TV, on Facebook, Kemini Nyamanyaman on Facebook as well, and I tweet at Kemini or at Join News on TV. Let's get into our first issue of the day. Ghana is one of the top countries in Africa with very high cases of domestic trafficking. In fact, the country is ranked 8th among African countries with the worst record of domestic trafficking. In the global rankings, Ghana is 21st. According to the 2014 Global Slavery Index, children in Ghana, especially those in Accra, are even forced to help adults beg for alms. The report compiled also highlights the sexual exploitation of women and girls, as well as the forcing of boys into hazardous work. Sonia Kwame is with Walk Free Foundation. She's joined me over the telephone. Now, Walk Free Foundation is the group which compiled this report. Well, my understanding is Sonia is not over the telephone yet. Perhaps we should take a look at something else while we put this particular issue together. Let's talk about Tamale, where there is a shortage of essential drugs at the Tamale Teaching Hospital. And our Northern Regional correspondent can draw a picture of this shortage to us as he's joined me over the telephone. Hello, Hashmi.
Loaded the visuals.
Hello, Hashmi.
Yeah, hello.
Hashmi, tell us more about the shortage of drugs at the Tamale Teaching Hospital.
Well, for some time now, patients visiting the Tamale Teaching Hospital have been told to go look for drugs outside the facility. This is because of difficulties in the procurement processes that the management are having in terms of procuring new drugs to augment the shortage that is currently existing at the Tamale Teaching Hospital.
Do you have an idea of the kind of drugs that are in short supply?
Well, according to management of the Tamale Teaching Hospital, these are essential drugs needed for the rehabilitation of patients visiting the facility. They name some of the drugs as ringers, lactate, and metronidazole. Those are some of the drugs that management of the Tamale Teaching Hospital have mentioned as being in shortage among other drugs.
I see. Now, what is it that the hospital authorities have been telling you as far as finding a solution to this is concerned?
According to the public relations officer of the Tamale Teaching Hospital, Misbah Mohammed, management are meeting today to speed up the procurement processes so that they can be able to award contracts to their suppliers to be able to supply those drugs in time.
I see. Now, what is patient response to this development?
Patients, this time around, they have to travel all the way from the Tamale Teaching Hospital to Central Business Town or to the nearby pharmaceutical shops that are able to serve them based on the National Health Insurance, and before they can be able to get those drugs. And sometimes they do visit some of the pharmaceutical stores, and they are not being attended to because, according to them, the delays in reimbursing the National Health Insurance claim has always been the reason.
Hashmin, we'll leave it here for now. We'll get back to this conversation in a bit. But now we can talk about Ghana being one of the top countries in Africa with very high cases of domestic trafficking. In fact, the country is ranked 8th among African countries with the worst record of trafficking. In the global rankings, Ghana is 21st. According to the 2014 Global Slavery Index, children in Ghana, especially those in Accra, are forced to help adults beg for alms. The report compiled also highlights the sexual exploitation of women and girls, as well as the forcing of boys into hazardous work. Sonia Kwame is with Walk Free Foundation, the group which compiled this report. Hello, Sonia.
Hello, Kemini.
Thanks for joining us here. But how was this conclusion on Ghana arrived at?
Wow, the Global Slavery Index, as you can tell, it's a report that looked at, that was a report, and it's research that was conducted by the World Free Foundation, which looks at the prevalence of modern slavery in countries. And we used different methodologies where we had interviews at the country level. We also use a lot of secondary data of what already exists. For example, the reports about from the U.S. government on issues around trafficking, all those reports, ILO and the rest. So we use reports that are already recognized in the world, and then we use that to compile what we call the GSI.
Were there any reports from Ghana that played a role in this conclusion?
With Ghana, for example, we had the trafficking in persons report by the U.S. government, which most countries in the world would normally respond to. We have reports by the International Labour Organization on Ghana. So these already existing reports. So what the GSI tried to do then was to look at all these reports. Not only did we compile what the situation is, we also tried to get responses from different governments. And then we also looked at what governments are doing. So it's not just about the prevalence of modern slavery in a country, but you also look at what governments are doing. So where a government had laws, the judicial system was working, all those things went into it. So it's not just looking at what is happening, but what is also being done at the country level.
I see. Now, when you've brought up government's response, according to this 2014 report, Ghana scored CCC in government response when it came to domestic trafficking. Now, what does this mean?
When we say CCC, what I'll say first of all to you and your listeners is, you can find the report on www.globalslaveryindex.org. Now, what CCC says, to just put it simply, is the fact that it's not a good situation, but it's also not a bad situation. I would say it's not a bad situation because every single person who is under modern-day slavery should not be there. So it means that something is being done by governments, but there's still a long way to go. It's not that nothing is being done. So CCC is not what we should aspire for. We should look at something like an A, where so much is being done. It's not just about the laws alone, but they are working, and even the general public is also doing something. So all these things come in. It's not just our government. It's also government and the people of the country.
Over the last couple of years, the police anti-human traffic units did a lot of work arresting persons who were engaged in domestic trafficking, rescuing children. How did that play out in this particular report?
Interestingly, with what you are saying about the human trafficking unit, our partner in Ghana, Challenging Heights, has worked with them very closely, and we are part of that as well. It all sums up. You see, it's like a drop in the ocean. Anti-human trafficking units, I have to say, anti-patients and his team are doing so well. First of all, arresting would-be traffickers on the way with kids, trying to rescue people, especially domestic workers in some of the Gulf countries, and I'm aware of a lot of these initiatives. But we are looking at a bigger problem that even the human trafficking unit alone can handle.
I see. What would it take to handle this bigger problem?
Interesting, Kimini. First of all, I think that one of the things we should look at is the legal framework. We have what we call the ILO C1989, which includes domestic workers. Only Mauritius and South Africa have ratified so far. So Ghana has the potential to be a leader in Africa on this. We could ratify that as a first step. It was also heartwarming that the president in the State of the Nation address disclosed that gender, children, and the social protection ministry should have initiated the process of the validation of the domestic workers regulation. So all this could all go into Ghana ratifying the C189. But apart from that, when it comes to specific implementation, it should be implemented. We need to have the law. We also need people to be aware of the law. And then when they are found culpable, they should be punished. I think that is important. And also, we as society, we need to frown down on it. If you have a little child in your house, the person works from morning till night, no rest. Your children go to school, that child has never got an education. You treat that child in a very terrible way. The child falls sick, you don't care. You are more interested in the child being like a donkey. If you look at what the definition of slavery is, such a thing is clearly a form of modern-day slavery. So it takes a concerted effort of you and me, especially middle-class homes and what we will call the middle class, or homes where these domestic workers are working. We need to treat them properly, see them as a part of you in terms of a decent worker, and treat them as that. We need domestic workers, but they should be treated properly and accorded that recognition.
Indeed.
So it's not just about government, and also, it's about everybody.
The absence or the lack of the things you've mentioned already scored Ghana some 54.4 when it came to vulnerability or the risk to domestic trafficking. Is that low or that's high?
I'm not sure I heard you well. Could you please go over that?
I'm saying that
Ghana's
vulnerability score, which is the risk to domestic trafficking, is about 54.4. My question is that low or that's high?
Your question is, please go back.
Is the 54.4 vulnerability score low or high?
It is actually, if we say high, which means that your vulnerability to domestic slavery is high. Yeah, it's high in Ghana. That means the vulnerability of it is high. When we say your vulnerability is low, which means that you are not easily vulnerable to risk. In Ghana, there's a very high vulnerability of falling into that.
What is it that is Ghana's biggest challenges, or what are Ghana's biggest challenges, the reasons why it's unable to handle domestic trafficking to the core?
Okay, we'll say one of the challenges is a mix of things. First of all, apart from the legal framework, which I've talked about, we also have the bit of the attitude of people. So I think that is the biggest problem in Ghana. If you read the Global Slavery Index, you realize that on Ghana, it says specifically that the issues are not by criminal gangs and all that like other countries. Generally speaking, it has to do with a lot of the ordinary person. Most of them do not even know what they are doing. You say, I need a little girl to help me in my home. You go to your village, or you tell someone a child is brought, or a house boy, house girl is brought to you. So it's something we grew up with and we kept seeing. So when it's also your turn as a professional, you go for somebody. So a lot has to do with the cultural practices. For example, fostering. Many people in Ghana grew up with relatives, and it's a very positive thing because for some people, that was their only opportunity of having a kind of education, having a certain type of socialization and also exposure, and it has made them what they are today. And so that type of socialization process has gone the wrong way, where a lot of exploitation also happens. And first, if you reported that to your parents, they'll tell you that, oh, you are just being lazy. So it has to do with a lot of our cultural practice and also what people think. A lot of this problem has to do with perception, I'm sorry to say. And it will take people like you and I to say that, look, you need this person, treat them like real human beings, treat them like somebody you respect, somebody who is adding value to you so that you have the freedom to also earn an income somewhere.
Sonia, I'm going to come to you briefly. I've just been joined by James Kofi Annan, who is Executive Director for Challenging Heights. You mentioned earlier you had worked closely with this particular group. James, thanks for joining us here.
Thank you very much.
James, how does this come to you? The fact that Ghana has been ranked 8th in Africa as far as modern slavery is concerned?
Well, it's disappointing if you look at the issue of this nation. We are supposed to be the gateway to Africa. In so many things, we have led in making a positive impact. I mean, the first in Sub-Saharan Africa to achieve independence, and so on and so forth. Looking at all of our resources, Ghana is noted to be a gold country, a timber country, lately an oil country. So all these things are things that are supposed to give us good development. But unfortunately, we've allowed ourselves to sink that low, to have this slavery in our country. And also come to think of it, that this is a problem that is solvable, that is preventable, and yet we seem not to be doing much to prevent it. We seem not to be doing much to solve it. That's quite disappointing.
But we see the likes of you do a lot of work. We've seen the likes of the police anti-human trafficking unit do a lot of work in this regard. And it's, like you said, extremely disappointing that this report highlights us as one of the worst performing countries when it comes to eradicating modern slavery. What more can we do? What are we not getting right?
You see, there's more you can do. I, as an individual, and with my organization, Challenging Heights, we are a private entity that's trying to help as a citizen. My sister, who is also on the line, Sonia, is also doing her best to help. Likewise, other organizations that might be doing something. But I want to see a vigorous program from the side of our leaders trying to tackle the problem head on. We have a national plan of action to tackle this problem. But if you have a national plan of action that has no support in terms of budgetary relief, then you're not doing anything. I mean, last year, the operational budget of the Secretariat of the Anti-Human Trafficking Unit of the Ministry of Gender was just a little below 200,000 Ghana cedis. And yet that money was not released. You know, my organization has bigger budget than that. That money was not released. So it means that we are not setting a certain priority. And I'm telling you that this issue of slavery is not a joke. We are not talking about a small something at the corner. It's something that can affect our economy. It's something that is affecting the future of our children. If you go to Lake Volta, for every 100 children that you see on Lake Volta, 48 of them are in slavery. That is the kind of situation we are talking about. And that's the kind of future we are creating for our children. So there's more we can do. We need to see big budgetary allocation to the Ministry of Gender, Social Protection in respect of slavery work in this country. I want to see those big budgetary allocations being released. I am calling for at least $5 million budget allocation to this problem in this country.
I see. Sonia.
Yes, Kenny, I'm here.
Will the big budget solve our problems?
The big budget can solve the problem. The caveat is that it should be used. If it is judicially spent, it can be solved. For example, Challenging Heights works with the Anti-Human Trafficking Unit. They rescue kids, and there is nowhere to go except because Challenging Heights has a shelter, they take them in with all the rehabilitation work going on. We do not have rehabilitation centers where kids around Lake Volta who get trafficked could even run to say that this is the situation, I need help. So we need that. It goes beyond just the money being there, which is sadly not there. But if the money is there, it should be used. We need shelters. We need hotlines with people who are very willing to respond immediately. People should be able to call and say, I'm seeing a situation like this, and we should follow through. Money is needed if we need to have law courts that can work really fast so that the prosecutors can investigate very quickly. So it's a big budget is not out of place. It's needed very much. You are prosecuting a case, and James is on the line. They'll manage to do one prosecution, and the other ones, there were issues. Next time, there's no transport. Next time, this is happening and all that. So big budgets also mean that we should have resources from those budgets. That should be used to tackle the problem. It is not something that is impossible. The transatlantic slave trade could be abolished, and people say it would never go. It was there for hundreds of years. It did go. And this is something that is at our doorstep. That takes a concerted effort of you and I. And a big budget with commitment to ensure that it goes will definitely help it to go.
Thank you very much.
Just quickly to add to what
quickly
said.
Quickly.
The reason why I mentioned a big budget that can also help to solve the problem. You have anti-human trafficking unit of Ghana Police Service in almost all the regions in Ghana. The entire unit that is dotted around 10 regions in Ghana has only one vehicle. How do you expect one vehicle to solve this problem? No, you are talking about 10 regions. That should have more than one vehicle per region. Apart from that, you're also talking about logistics, both to rescue children, logistics for prosecutors to be able to transport themselves from wherever the center is to the courtroom. You're talking about shelters. The law that establishes the human trafficking unit says that there must be one shelter, at least one shelter in every region. We don't even have one. You see, so these are all items that require resources. That's why we are calling for that. So if you allocate the resources, we are looking at also using the resources judiciously and transparently and making sure that the resources are in action. That's what we are calling for.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for your time. I've been speaking with Sonia Kwame, who is with the Walk Free Foundation, and James Kofi Annan is with Challenging Heights.